What is up? Sorry I'm a few minutes late tonight. Sorry. How you guys doing? Good to be here with you. Excited to dive in tonight. If you're new here, this is a place where we take callers. We just open phone lines, and we want a place where people can come and share anything they might be going through. And we just hear callers out. We kind of explore their stories, the things that led them to where they are, the things they're feeling, and try to ask helpful questions, including, whether they're in therapy and things like this. This is not a replacement for therapy, not a substitute for counseling. I'm not a psychologist. I'm trying to say that at least once. I'm sure the regular viewers are sick of me giving this preamble, but I kind of need to do it because this is serious and could be very dangerous if we don't take certain precautions to make sure people know what this is. Of course, we can't call a short phone call here with the chat and me therapy, so that's not what this is. But this is a place where we want to have conversations, and we do it anonymously. We don't collect names. We don't want your name. In fact, if you give us your name or location, you get toasted. We hang up on you. The goal is to just create a safe place where anyone can feel like they have a chance to call in and just get feedback and support from all these wonderful people here. And the Discord has kind of turned into its own community. It's amazing to see. If you guys haven't seen the Discord, I highly recommend getting in there. I would say at this point, it seems like there's like 50 new people in there every day, which is great for what this whole thing is, especially considering this is on a channel historically known for comedy. That quote, misery loves comedy. Tragedy loves comedy. It's one of those. Misery loves company. Tragedy loves comedy. That's what it is. But yeah, the point of this is much different than the videos you've seen here in the past. There will still be some goofy stuff every now and then, of course. I'm also, this channel has been known for shorts historically, which, YouTube has kind of moved away from with their algorithms and stuff. So at least for now. So, but I wanted to do something with this place that I built. And I'm a guy who's been through a lot of things in my life. And I didn't want this channel to just be sitting here doing nothing. And I couldn't think of anything else that would seem valuable and meaningful to do with it. Because my sketches were always, some of them were goofy, but a lot of them had kind of deeper meanings to them. So this has always been a place where I've kind of wanted to use for some sort of value for people. And I wasn't going to do just anything with it. So that's what this is. It's a place where we're just getting real. We're just kind of, it's a minimal production effort, and it's all focused on the callers. And we just talk to people for about 3 hours, 3 times a week. Open the lines up. I want to soft announce something here. I'm soft announcing it, meaning I can very well take this back because I'm still trying to figure out how this whole thing ought to work. This stream came from a deep place in my heart. I wanted to, I would have wanted a place like this so many times in my life. I wanted a place to have just shared freely. And I'm a person that's been in a lot of therapy. I'm pro therapy. I think everyone should have a therapist or a counselor, not a psychiatrist necessarily. Some people need a psychiatrist, but I think everybody can benefit from just talking to someone who has experience, life experience, and with a counselor or a shrink, you pay them for their education and as well. So it's kind of like a long-term relationship. So deep down, there have been times in my life where I've always, as I said, I've been through a lot of stuff, really difficult things. I've made a lot of therapists cry with my story. And I just got to a place where I realized, I'm going to have to figure out a lot of this stuff that I've gone through on my own. And I did that with the help of a lot of great books and research. And, I'm trying to avoid getting too specific here because my story could potentially implicate many people who I don't want to tie up in anything. But I'm talking about decades worth of stuff that I've had to just figure out, that there haven't been rule books to navigate. So this is a long-winded way of saying I am eager for this place to really help people that maybe going through difficult stuff where they don't know who to go to with. And we have so many people calling in here sharing details of their story that they said they've never shared anywhere, even with their own therapists and counselors, because of the anonymity, not because of any one of us in particular, but because the anonymity. And I believe that because the details these people are sharing are so intimate and could harm them if their identity were tied to them. So I do believe this place is creating some good for some people. And I wish it could go deeper, because an hour-long phone call, the longest call we've had is about an hour and 15 minutes. And it's not, there's so many times where I tell people, like, I'm not going to give you advice on that on a short phone call. More often than not, a caller, I kind of turn them down on specific advice they're looking for because I take their lives seriously, and I don't want to mess up someone's life on a short phone call. I take that really seriously because, again, I've been there, and it's meant a lot to me over the years to have people be like, look, I'm not going to weigh in on this on just a short conversation. So that's why I do that. But anyways, I'm kind of soft announcing here that I am eager for this to go deeper, and I would like to be able to. There's been so many callers that I've wished I could have followed up with, and so I'm not really sure where this is going, but I'm trying to figure out what it would look like to do some kind of life coaching extension of this, where I want to trial run a very small number of life coaching courses, or whatever you want to call it, just sessions. I want to try this. I might not keep it up, and I might just end up keeping focus on this series because, again, my life is very full, and I have a limited amount of time to focus on this project. But I do believe that there is so many people calling in that wish they could get more feedback and more input on their stories. And so I'm toying with this idea of offering a very small number of life coaching sessions for specific people. So I've got an email address set up that I want to show on the screen. And if there's anybody watching that would be interested in something like that, I haven't figured out pricing or anything like that yet. Like I said, this is something I'm just considering. So it might not make sense. This project already eats up so much of my time, and it takes so much from me to get these done every week and manage everything that goes into it. Often I'm up till 2 or 3 in the morning dealing with the project, and I'm going on 4-6 hours of sleep. 6 hours of sleep is a good night for me with this project happening. But I believe in it, and I really do care about people because I've been there, and I'm hesitating saying more about this because there's more I do want to share, but I do want to get into the calls. But I'm just soft announcing here. And again, it might not actually happen, but I just am curious if there's anybody listening or who has called in that has thought about that and might want that. And depending on the response, I might move forward with a small number of sessions with specific clients. So I haven't figured out pricing yet because but it probably won't be any more affordable than other life coaching services. Again, this isn't therapy; it's life coaching. So, and I might not even do it because my plate is already very thin, and I want to keep focus on this live stream aspect of the project because it is anonymous. But I'm toying with a way to make the life coaching equally anonymous. I don't know if that will be possible. So again, there's a lot of maybes here, but that's something I'm thinking about. And there's more that I will share about this later on. So I'm making that announcement here. It's a soft announcement. This is an email address you can email if you're interested, js@anonymouslive.com. Make sure you spell anonymous right. In fact, I should have probably put this in the video description. If you're nervous about misspelling this, you can just look for it in the video description later. But I'll also leave it up here for about 5 seconds so you can take note of it if you want, or take a screen grab. You can send me an email here tonight if you're generally interested, and if you're curious about what pricing would be. I'm not going to say any specific numbers here yet, because again, I don't even know if this would be of interest to people, because I have zero qualifications except for a lot of niche life experience, and I think there's a number of specific ways where this could be helpful for people, specifically relating to this is a place where we could weigh in on career stuff a little more, where we could spend a few sessions getting to know each other, and I could hear more about your story than just a 30-minute phone call, or somebody going through a divorce. I've been through that, and I've got kids, and I know how difficult that can be, and I've read a lot of books on this stuff. And again, this is not a substitute. None of this is a substitute for therapy. But if you've gotten something out of these live streams and you've been curious what something a little bit deeper might look like, a little more intimate, where we can spend more time talking, this is an email address for you to email and just say you're generally interested. And there will be more on that probably next week. So with that, I have not checked the chat to see how that response is going. I'm not going to stop here to gauge that response. I do want to get into these calls, but I wanted to make that announcement. So, little update. We got a disclaimer at the top of the screen now. I thought this was important. We had a disclaimer before, but there wasn't a good place to put it because it was already taking up a bunch of space on the screen, so it was kind of short and not very descriptive. So I've added this little scrolling text at the top here. I hope it catches people's attention right out of the gate when they come in here, so that there's no mistaking what this is. Because again, I want to be very safe and careful with this. I take this very seriously, what we're doing, and I'm fully aware of the danger this could be if we don't take it seriously. That's why I go out of my way to constantly say things like, I'm not a psychologist, or I'm not going to give you life advice. So yeah, a little update there, which is fun. And also, we've got a fun soundboard now, which was a lot of fun last week. I'm looking forward to using that this week again. So any ideas for the soundboard? Let me know in the chat. We'll add some things. I've only got 4 sounds in here right now, but don't judge me. I just thought it'd be a nice little addition for some lighthearted, just a little break in between the calls. And every now and then there's a little joke, and I just kind of, it's fun. You'll get used to it. All right, here we go. We're going to turn on these lines. Number is on the screen. Please read the disclaimer before calling. The phone lines are going to be updated soon, so that when you're calling, it's not just ringing and then I'm answering. Soon there will be a message kind of giving you some instructions on what to be prepared for. But for right now, it's still just ringing. The voicemail is useless, so if you're just watching for the first time, don't worry about the voicemail. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hey, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine. What do you want to talk about tonight?
Okay. So, I have a lot going on in life and haven't really had someone to vent to, kind of talk about it. It's been definitely stressful. My wife, whenever we had first got engaged and moved in with each other, we found out that her stepdad had been molesting her cousin and grooming her daughter. And then he got arrested. And
he got arrested?
Now he got arrested. And he just recently pled guilty, so that's kind of starting to wrap up. But
my goodness,
just not too long after that, we somewhat got evicted, so we had to move to a very small, tiny trailer with kids and 2 adults. And then less than a year later, we found out that my stepdaughters, after we got married, we found out my stepdaughters had been involved with a child pornography ring that their biological father was running.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go into detail with how old they are, but they're very young.
Was it like a child abduction kind of thing? Were they abducted, or what? How did? I guess they were with their dad.
No.
So.
Yeah. So basically, he has not been a great father. He was very emotionally manipulative of the girls, and they would go to his house every other weekend. He randomly stopped asking to see them, and a couple months after he stopped asking to see them, we found out, we got a call from a CPS investigator that he had actually been, his apartment got raided. They found a bunch of child pornography on all of his devices and a bunch of videos of him doing drugs. They wouldn't tell us what drugs they were. And then they also found several different types of drugs in his apartment on top of that.
My goodness, I'm so sorry.
He has been reaching out trying to see the girls, which he does technically have a legal right to see them, but we have been kind of, I guess you could call, ghosting him, because we don't feel comfortable sending the girls to see him, obviously. He hasn't been arrested yet. They're trying to build a case. But not too long after that, we somewhat got evicted again. So I had to pick up 4 jobs, which I have currently.
Oh, my goodness.
And then a couple months after that, we found out my wife is pregnant. Her birth control wasn't working for whatever reason that was in her arm. So now she is pregnant as well. And I am deeply and probably unreasonably terrified to bring another child into this world with all the stuff we've experienced over the past year and a half.
I can understand why. I'm so sorry to hear your story. That's a severe experience. That is, yeah, I mean, it's coming from all sides. This must feel like nowhere is safe. I mean, it seems like it's just, there's nowhere safe for the kids. I understand why you'd be worried about a new one.
Well, and the big issue that I'm kind of going through is, I'm, supposed to be kind of, or I feel as though I'm supposed to be kind of the rock of my family.
Mm-hmm.
And the hard part for me is, no matter what, I feel as though I have to keep a positive attitude and help guide my family to get things moving and get them in a comfortable spot where they feel safe and they feel like everything is being handled. And it does kind of weigh on me, especially, like I said, I haven't really had anyone to talk with about it. Insurance doesn't cover therapy, and I just haven't really had an outlet.
How are you, to backtrack a little bit, how are you managing to keep your stepkids from their biological dad if he has a legal right to be with them? How's that going?
So it's an interesting situation. Both the CPS investigator and our attorney advised us to keep the girls away from him as much as possible. We are trying to get a temporary restraining order, which after we get a temporary restraining order, he legally cannot see them, which will help. And we're also getting his rights edited. He's not technically, giving up his rights, but we're getting the rights adjusted to where he can't see them without my wife's permission, I guess. And so his parents, he's living with his parents right now because he got fired from his job because of the trial. His job didn't want that kind of publicity. If he did get arrested, they didn't want, their company being tied to him in any way. So he's living with his parents right now, and his parents have been asking to see the girls, but since they technically don't have legal rights to them, we don't have to give them the girls. He has reached out a couple times saying, hey, I hope to see them soon, but he has not reached out with the, hey, I want to see them at this time on this date. So legally, through talking with our attorney, legally he has not requested to exercise his rights to see them. Kind of a work around the system, I guess you could say.
I'm so sorry to hear about all this. That sounds like a massive, massive mess and headache, and it must feel like a nightmare. I mean, I'm glad that you've got attorneys. Um, I'm glad to hear CPS is involved. Um, CPS does a lot of good work. They're very thorough. I hope that you guys get the justice you deserve. And I mean, a temporary restraining order is fairly easy to get, and it's fairly quick. Is that something that's already in progress? Have you guys looked into that? Is that something that's happening now?
So my wife's attorney is trying to get it submitted, which she's a friend of the family, but she can't just drop all of the work she currently has. So she's trying to get it processed in her free time, when she's not working with other cases. And I guess the big issue is she's wanting to get as much, I guess you could say, evidence of his neglect, because we requested child support way back because he doesn't pay for anything and doesn't support the girls financially in any way, shape, or form. He hasn't paid the child support in well over 6 months. He hadn't seen them in 3, almost 4 months. And so she's trying to get all the evidence of him saying he doesn't want to see them, all the evidence of him being late on his child support, and she's trying to just basically make it solid so there's no way it will get denied. Because that's our biggest fear, is if we put it in, it gets denied, and then we have to figure something else out.
Okay. Well, I don't know where you are, and I don't want to know. Please don't tell me. But I do know that in most states, our temporary restraining order is very quick and a very easy process. So I would be, can you press your lawyers to, you're talking about child pornography and abuse. Like, it should be pretty easy to get that. I can't think of any judge that won't give you a temporary restraining order. That seems pretty easy to get. Have you pressed into? I'm only suggesting this because I would hate for. It sounds like a lot of time has passed, and I would hate for. I'm not sure if how familiar you are with working with lawyers. A lot of times, lawyers are incentivized to drag a process out because they're billed by the hour. Every email you send them is like $75, and they're incentivized to. They're not your friend. They're incentivized to make it last as long as possible. So, I might be. I don't want to insult your intelligence. I don't know your experience with lawyers, but I just know that I've seen a lot of people get wringed dry and run along absurdly long timelines for things that should be very simple because the lawyer just wants to bill more hours. Have you tried leaning into the lawyer and see like if there's any way to if you're doing too much too soon? I mean, it sounds like you're preparing for trial instead of getting a temporary restraining order.
Yeah, well, and the issue is like I said, it's a family friend of my wife's family.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big differences between me and my wife, which weirdly makes us work, but one of the kind of differences is I tend to try to plan for the worst, and that guides me to kind of see the worst in people. She tries to plan for the best, and that causes her to kind of see the best in people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing we've kind of gone back and forth on, is I've multiple times said, hey, this doesn't feel right. I feel like it should be a lot quicker. I feel like this should have already been done. And her side is very like, well, she has a lot going on. It seems like she's very stressed and pressed with other stuff. Let's give her the time to do what she needs to do. And so
right.
I think there's just a lot of general tension. And I think my wife's worried because we looked at different attorneys. The family friend is doing this whole process for a fraction of the price that other attorneys kind of told us it would, ballpark us.
Right.
And so I think she's just nervous that if she pushes too much, the family friend's going to say, you know what, forget it, go find a different attorney. And I think that's part of the reason she's, cautious about bringing up like, hey, this should have been a lot quicker.
So, Deanna, I totally understand why you wouldn't want to push this lawyer in that case. I totally get that. For what it's worth, and this isn't a recommendation, this is just food for thought. You can just think about it, because I don't know your situation, except for what you're telling me. But for what it's worth, Deanna Krebs from the chat, she just graduated law school in New York, and she's a member of our community that offers a lot of different kinds of support to people in the Discord community we have going. She's in the chat saying that she says, yeah, a temporary restraining order is simple and should be processed quickly. You can process one without a lawyer, which is my understanding too. So I'm just, for what it's, you've called in here and your story is extreme. And again, I'm not telling you to do anything, but it's just food for thought that, because I mean, I'm just concerned, like you're talking about child pornography and sexual abuse, like, and the kids, it's the kid's biological dad who has a legal right to them. Yeah, it's just food for thought. I don't know what to, I'm not pressuring you to do anything, but just maybe think about that. And I'm just so sorry to hear your story. Are your kids okay? I mean, what do they think is happening?
So, with them, it's a very difficult. I don't really like lie to my children. It's just kind of, my parents lied very liberally with us. We found out growing up that 90% of what they told us was lies. And so we were advised by both our attorney and CPS again to not tell them the situation, because they don't want the girls, because our oldest has been diagnosed with bipolar. We have to drive to a complete other city because our city doesn't have any sort of hospitals for children with mental illness. So she goes to another place for that stuff, and our attorney and CPS advised us not to tell them the situation because they don't want the girls to have any more pressure or issues going on in their life. And so they asked questions about, hey, why hasn't our, dad seen us? Why is he avoiding us? It's very hard for me not to tell them, but the last thing they heard was his parents requested to see the girls when we didn't know that he was being investigated. So we let his parents see the girls, and his parents told them, hey, your dad can't see you right now. He is very sick, and he probably won't be able to see y'all for a while. But once he's better, y'all can see him again. And so the girls have it in their mind, hey, our dad's just sick. Like, when's he going to get better so we can go see him? Like, they're imagining, like, the flu or something.
Right. How old are they?
Huh?
How old are they?
They're still in early elementary.
Oh. Gosh, my heart breaks for them. I'm so sorry to hear your story. That is intense. I don't know what I would be doing. It's coming from all sides. I mean, we've been talking about their biological dad for a long time now, but I mean, I just keep remembering that there's a whole other side of the story involving the stepdad. I'm really, really sorry.
Yes, which the older of my two, she is going to therapy still because she was the one that my wife's stepdad was grooming. And she didn't understand. He told her, oh, these are just naps. Like, this is all this is. She didn't understand what he was doing until CPS basically had to explain to her, hey, what he's doing is not right. Naps do not involve that. And so she's currently going to therapy for that as well. And it's just been very tricky because she just now opened up to the therapist about it. We found out probably, I think it was about a month and a half ago, about their biological father. And 2 weeks before that, she had just opened up to her therapist about the stuff that happened with my wife's stepdad. And so it feels like when they find out, this is either going to help her move forward or it's going to be a huge step back for her, because she already has a hard time trusting the men in her life.
Right.
And so when it comes to now she learned, oh, my dad was doing the same thing basically, then it's going to affect her mentally even more so.
My friend, I'm so sorry to hear your story. How old are you?
I am 24. I'll be 25 in May.
Oh my goodness, you are going through so much for your early 20s. I cannot believe it. You sound so strong and put together. I was thinking maybe you were in your mid-30s or something. It sounded like you... I mean, it sounds like you've got a good head on your shoulders. It sounds like... I mean, maybe it's just because you've been going through so much and you've had to use a lot of critical thinking to get through it. It sounds like you've made a lot of really good decisions. I'm still just so sorry to hear your story. How many kids are involved between the stepfather and the biological father?
So, kids involved total, it was 3 in our family, and then one of her stepdad's best friends who got arrested for the exact same thing, they found out his daughter and I believe stepdaughter were both involved as well.
KO from the chat says, caller, I hate that you are in this situation, but you are a good example in their life, and I'm seconding that to you. They need you right now to be their father figure. And I know it sounds like you know that, but I wanted to encourage you that this can get better. I mean, I think that there's no good time for something like this to happen to anyone. But I'm glad that that these kids are young enough to where they'll grow up with you as a good example in their life of what a father should be. And, I mean, you're going to mean so much to them when they get through all this. I mean, I'm sure that you already do mean so much to them. But I'm just trying to encourage you that this can and sounds like it will blow over. It sounds like you're taking good steps. I'm glad you have an attorney and that you're not doing this without an attorney. This is serious, of course. I've never been in this particular situation, so I want to be really careful not to, that's why I'm being so reluctant to make specific recommendations or, I have no life experience to pull from in this case, but I do know how the family court works to a fair extent, and I do know I've had a lot of friends, dear friends, who've been caught up in things like this that I've been there for, and I know at least from the stories I've heard from my friends, I can at least begin to imagine what you're going through, trying to protect these kids and keep them safe from, I mean, their dad. I mean, that's the most heartbreaking part. It's their own dad. Pedophilia is such a virus. It's such an unfortunate virus. I mean, it's...
Well, and, my wife, obviously her ex-husband was not a great guy, even when they were married.
Right.
And my father, it's actually, me and my wife's story is very, I guess you could say unique. We knew each other in high school. We were really good friends. We were in band together. And then she graduated, got married, and then she got divorced. Well, we ended up reconnecting online. And she came with kids, which the funny part is, I always had a huge rule. I didn't date women with kids, not because of any weird thing, but it was just because whenever you break up with a woman with kids, you have to break up with the kids as well. And I didn't want to be another person in a kid's life that they felt like abandoned them.
Right. That's very noble of you.
The week before we reconnected, I was with one of my buddies, and I was complaining about how I couldn't find any women who wanted the same things in life as me. And he gave me advice. He said, well, maybe try broadening your horizons. He said, you say you don't date women with children. He goes, maybe talk to a woman with children, take it very slow, and go from there. And a week later, we reconnected, And me and her talked for probably about 6 months. I wanted to make sure we worked out. Then after I knew we would work out, then I met her parents, and I interacted with her parents when her kids weren't there for about 6 months.
Right.
And then once I knew me and her family got along well, then I met her children. And after about 3 months of knowing her children, that's when I decided, okay, we can start dating, which seems like a long progression, but I wanted to make, 1,000% sure everyone would work out. But my father was not a great father. For the last part of my teenage years, he started getting very into drugs and was very emotionally and physically abusive. So I wanted to be the opposite of him. Then when I was 21, he committed suicide.
Oh my goodness.
And
I'm so sorry.
So that kind of was a thing that me and my wife connected on, because when she was 7, her father committed suicide. And we kind of connected on that point because she said she always felt she couldn't imagine having a father for her whole life and then losing him.
Right.
And I always said I couldn't imagine losing my father at such a young age.
Right.
But that's kind of what I set for my bar is, I don't want to be the person my dad was as a parent. Right.
Again, very noble of you. I'm wondering how your wife is doing in all this.
She's holding very well. She, I think, is more of the kind of, she internalizes her emotions to process them, not to block them or hide them. She wants to process them internally before she talks to someone about it, so she can understand her emotions before she brings someone else into the equation.
I see.
And so when she talks to me about her emotions, it's very methodical and very processed already. So there's not much, I can do in, advice and stuff in that point, but she's holding up pretty well. The only thing we've struggled with is she's had to go to the emergency room multiple times during this pregnancy because her heart rate has spiked to not good levels because of stress. And so that's kind of the only thing we've been really struggling on her side, if that makes sense.
My friend, you are under so much. I'm trying to imagine going through something like that without anybody, without a counselor, without a therapist, without somebody that, you sound very strong. You sound very level-headed. Maybe you're just super rational. I don't know. But you mentioned your insurance wouldn't cover it. Is that something that and then you mentioned you're working 4 jobs. Is that something that could you afford a cheap therapist?
I've looked into online therapy because the other issue is scheduling.
Right.
In the past, when I have found therapists that would work with me on prices and stuff, their schedule doesn't work with mine. So I've looked into online therapy, but the only issue with that is whenever I ask my insurance that I have, they say you need to ask the people on the website if they take the insurance. Whenever I ask whatever customer service for whatever website or app I try, they say, we send you a bill, you send it to your insurance, and your insurance decides if they cover it or not. And so that's been kind of one of the big back and forths on that part.
You might have better luck finding a therapist through Google, like an individual practice, instead of calling one of these big services in your case. You could, most therapists with their own practice now do some kind of telehealth option. You can do um, web sessions with them now. Most of them, because of since the pandemic, they all kind of had to start doing that. So I would recommend, if it's an insurance problem, this is a recommendation. I would look into finding a high-rated, a well-rated, and affordable therapist in your area, someone that preferably specifically in your city, that you could maybe go see in person sometimes as your schedule permits, but build a relationship with someone that will take your insurance. A lot of those people will take your insurance, but a lot of these big services won't. I don't know if that makes sense, but a big company probably isn't going to take your insurance. It's like going to a hospital. If you find an individual, sometimes they work out of their home, sometimes they have a small office, and those people will, I can't promise you they'll take your insurance. I don't know what insurance you have, and everybody takes different insurance, of course, but it will certainly be easier to get your insurance accepted through an individual than through a business. That makes sense to me. I would love to hear that tomorrow you're at least going to do some Googling in your area and find a therapist that try to find a therapist that will take your insurance, an individual, not a business.
Yeah, I haven't thought about looking into just like an individual practice like that. That might be something I can look into coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, you're going through so much, and it sounds like you got so much on your plate already, but I mean, this is going to be a long road for you if you're going into court with your stepkid's dad. That's going to be a long road, and I would love for you to have a long-term relationship with someone that's going to be there for you, hopefully in your city, someone that you might be able to see in person sometimes. I would love to hear that you're going to seek that out, and don't. I feel like I don't have to talk you into therapy. We get a lot of callers in here saying, like, I don't believe in therapy and stuff, but I don't get that vibe from you. It seems like it's literally just a time and money constraint thing. So I'm trying to give you some ideas on what would make that work.
Yeah, I did go to a therapist for a while. I actually, I've had kind of, I don't know, I guess you could call it diagnosis changes in my life. I've gotten it down to just one medication I'm on. But for a while they thought I was bipolar. Then for a while they thought it was just anxiety and depression. And then now they're now I'm on a medicine that whenever I was going and kind of seeing a doctor for it, they kind of put me on medicine that was kind of like, we don't really know what's going on, but this medicine should help. So
I see.
That's kind of, it's been probably 3, maybe 4 years since I've been to a therapist, and it's just kind of, it's very, it's a time restraint, because I work for a local school district doing 2 jobs, one full-time, one part-time. Then I'm working for a person who owns duplexes. I'm doing the maintenance at the duplexes they own, and when someone moves out, they're going to let us move in at a discounted rate. And then I also just got a job at a retail store not too long ago.
Okay.
As well.
You've got some good things going for you. Your plate is certainly full.
To employees.
That's good. That sounds good. I'm sorry I talked over you. I was just noting that it sounds like you've got some good things coming up on the horizon, and it sounds like you've done your best to really be there for your kids and provide for them. And that's I just want to repeat how admirable that is of you to step up and be I have no doubt you love them, and that you just want to be there for them. But I just want to have you hear me say that I think that's amazing that your kids have you, and that you care about them so much, and that you're fighting for them like this, and that you're going out of your way to help them realize. It sounds like you're kind of, they have a therapist. I'm sure you're not trying to help them process what's happened to them by yourself, but they're going to look up to you, and you're going to I'm sure that you already mean so much to them. I'm glad that they have you. And the chat is just lighting up with love for you. And I hope that you go revisit the chat and read through it, if not for anything else, then to just get some encouraging words. There's also some ideas I haven't highlighted, because again, I don't know I mean, there's so many, I can only imagine how many details to your story there are that you haven't been able to share, but if you go through the chat and read, you might see some things that are pertinent. So that would be a good thing to do. And then also, you're the peak age of our Discord community. I'm observing. A lot of people in the Discord community are your age. We got a lot of older people in there too, and some younger, but there's a lot of people in their mid-20s in there. It's a great place for community. If you don't feel like you have people that will be listening ears for you in this time, and it's not, again, like, you need a therapist, but like, if you don't have enough friends, you mentioned you didn't have anybody that would really listen. You hadn't felt like you'd had a listening ear yet until this. So if you feel like you need that, just a community of people that won't judge you for whatever you're going to say, the Discord community is becoming a great place for people to use it that way. And, there's some lighthearted channels in there too, where people just goof off and have a good time. But mostly people are going there to share about things they're going through and get encouragement and support and motivation. So you might consider checking that out.
Yeah, well,
you're very busy though.
I mean, I have several friends, but I'm the only one that's married with kids. I'm the only one that kind of has gone through a lot of the stuff I've gone through of my friends. And I mean, honestly, I apologize if it sounds like I'm just kind of spilling everything out. It's just
no, that's what this is for.
It's hard for me to talk about myself in person with people,
right?
Because I feel as though I'm just complaining and just bringing everyone down. So I tend to just, even if people ask me about it, I tend to just kind of, shoulder it off and say, oh, it's not a big deal. It's nothing huge.
I see. Well, you were under so much. I'm so glad that you called in and shared. I'm so sorry to hear your story. I can't imagine how that must feel to be going through that. It must be so terrifying. You sound very brave. You sound very strong. You sound like you are doing the work. And I'm just so glad that you're the primary father figure in these kids' lives. I'm glad they have you to look up to.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's definitely a difficult situation, and we're trying to see the silver lining and trying to get to the next step in life where we're just, taking it one step at a time, hoping the next one is a better one. And it's very hectic and very difficult to kind of process all this stuff. I feel like I'm very inexperienced at life, but I've experienced so much life, if that makes sense.
I love that way of putting it. Well, you're about to be hella experienced after you get through this. After you go through the court system, you're going to be, nobody's going to be able to, you're going to be bulletproof after you get through this with the kid's biological dad. He's going to be terrified of you guys when he finds out what's coming. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing that what you just shared, that you feel inexperienced, and I'm just thinking how much experience you're about to gain. It makes me happy for you. You were going to see the end of this. I have good feelings about this, and I think that's because it sounds like you're digging in and doing the work, and it sounds like you're going about this with the right perspective. So I'm happy to hear that.
Yes, and one of the things we were kind of worried about was he is a veteran, so he owns a ton of guns. So we were nervous that he was going to try something. But the thing that kind of is giving us hope is he is not a very large person, and I am a very large person. I'm almost 6'3", and I weigh about 245. So I'm a very large person, and he was very physically intimidated by me. My wife and her mother both told me that whenever I came into the picture, he stopped being verbally abusive.
Good.
To my wife, which was his ex.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. Maybe he's not going to mess with you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of what we're hoping. We're hoping, he's intimidated enough by her because he did, emotionally abuse her, and she was terrified of, getting him upset with her until I came into the picture and I had her back and I pushed her and, reminded her, no, this isn't right what he's doing. And so she has become much more, confrontational with him, and much more, she uses her voice and tells him, hey, you are not going to do this anymore. This
Right.
is not right. And I'm hoping with both his physical intimidation by me and now his mental intimidation by her, he kind of tries to stay away.
I hope so. Well, I know it doesn't sound like you have time for a bunch of expendable time for the Discord, but it is a great place to give us an update. I would love to see an update, at least one post from you in the future, even if you don't join, even if you just pop in there and be like, hey, I called a while ago. You don't have to give us your information or reveal your identity, but I'd love to get an update from you and hear how things are going a few months from now as you're further along. It's been one of the hardest things about this format is hanging up with people and then wondering how they're doing. So it would be great to see some kind of update, at least a post, letting us know how things are going. And if you continue dealing with this, feel free to call again anytime.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, I really, really am glad that, because I was just sitting at my house. One of my jobs had canceled today, so I had a little bit of free time, and I saw that you had gone live, and I had watched your videos for years, and so I thought it was going to be like a comedy, like, oh, this is, kind of a skit show or something like that, or
Right.
planning skits or something, I don't know. But whenever I saw what it was, it made, like, I felt very, I guess, called to call, if that makes sense. And it was just something that just happened, and I'm glad it did. I'm glad I found this.
I'm glad it did too. I'm so glad that we got to talk and I could hear your story, and the chat. Yeah, again, they're lighting up with love and support for you, and there are some interesting ideas in there that might be worth revisiting. But I do want to, again, just extend the invitation to you anytime in the future. If this continues to, if the plot continues to thicken, please call back and we can pick up where we left off.
Yeah, definitely. I will definitely try to call back and give more updates and stuff as stuff happens.
Sounds good. Take care of yourself, and thanks for all the support over all these years. That means a lot to me.
Thank you.
Take care.
I definitely appreciate you doing this.
Call back at any time. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, guys, I'm going to get these phone lines opening. I apologize. I have to run upstairs real quick because somebody is here, and I have locked them out by mistake. Phone lines are opening. Coming back in 10 seconds. Hi, thanks for calling.
Oh, hi.
What you want to talk about?
Well, kind of need some advice on what I should do. So here's some context. I am 24 years old. I grew up pretty normal household. I'm the youngest brother of three. So both of my brothers are half brothers with different fathers. We all share the same mother. My parents got divorced when I was 8, and it was a pretty nasty divorce. My father, well, there's multiple reasons why the divorce happened. I think my father is homosexual, I think he finally came to terms with that around the time of the divorce. So that probably had something to do with it.
I see.
I also found out later that my father was accused of molesting both of my half brothers.
Oh my goodness.
Um, yeah, so that I didn't find that out till a little bit later when I was in my teens. My mother actually told me, and that obviously affected me quite a bit.
I can imagine. I can only imagine.
Um,
I'm so sorry.
yeah, it's all right. I've come to terms with it through therapy, and thankfully he didn't do anything to me. But it's hard, right? Because he's my dad and I love him, but and we don't have just to be clear, there's no proof he wasn't found guilty of a crime or anything. But there's circumstantial evidence there, and I think that he may have done it. So, but anyway, my mother, shortly after the divorce, my mother became an alcoholic. She was drinking pretty heavily for most of my teen years. So I would live with my father for a couple of years at a time, and then I would move in with my mother, stay with her a couple of years at a time, and we would sort of switch back and forth. Um, the latter part of my teen years, I was mostly living with my father, with various family members, or in a home with my father, an apartment. That was mainly due to my mother's alcoholism and her codependence. So what would happen would be she would start dating a guy for a couple of years and get really involved, as a codependent individual does. They would get very serious very quickly, and then for one reason or another, either because of my mom's alcoholism or dysfunction or domestic violence, she would separate. So my mother actually remarried once after the divorce. She ended up getting divorced from that individual because he was an alcoholic, and domestic abuse happened several times in the household. Um, I lived with her during that, and that was very chaotic for me as a young man. So, long story short, I started going to therapy when I was in high school. I think sophomore, junior year, I started going to therapy. And through that therapy process, I found that my mother was actually the cause of a lot of my mental distress. I was diagnosed with major depression. Major depression. I started taking medication, so citalopram, and through therapy, I decided it would be best for me to no longer talk to my mother. I had a phone call with her one day, and she was basically chewing me out for not talking to one of my family members for a few weeks or something like that. I don't remember the specifics, but I had told her, I'm tired of you trying to tell me how to live my life. You've emotionally neglected me, and I feel that you're the cause of a lot of my mental health problems, and I can't speak to you anymore. I'm done. So that was sort of the breaking point for me, and that was about 6 years ago.
So you've been no contact
I've
with your
blocked
mother for
her.
6 years, is that right?
Yeah, I've had no contact with her for about 6 or 7 years now.
How's that going for you?
So, it's good, I think. I've I'm I've noticed that my mental health has improved quite a bit. That's not the only factor. I've obviously gotten a little older. I've found my way in my career. I have a girlfriend. I've had a stable relationship for the past 5 years now. So a lot of other things have improved as well, but I think that was a major contributing factor to my mental health improving. I'm no longer on medication anymore as of
Great.
2 months ago. I ended therapy a couple years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's going well. I do have members of my family and friends of mine that disagree with my decision.
Right.
They don't really understand how I could cut someone out of my life like that, especially the woman who gave birth to me. But it's sort of like they haven't been in my shoes. They haven't
That's right.
lived my life and experienced what I have. So I try to explain to them why I've made the decision I've made. But at the end of the day, I know that it's best for me, and I don't lose much sleep over it. So
Abby Cuff from the chat says, my husband had to cut off toxic family members, and that's really hard. I've got a lot of respect for you for doing what you need to do for your mental health. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. Parental estrangement is a lonely road, and it's riddled with all kinds of resistance from family members. I mean, aunts, uncles, grandparents who just don't get it because they've never been a dependent of this person. They've never been dependent on a person like this, or this particular person at least. And it's a hard thing to understand for people. I get that.
I think it makes it a little more difficult for people to understand as well. Like I obviously have family members that know what happened with my father. And I've been asked before, why do you no longer talk to your mom, but you still talk to your dad?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, what my dad did was horrible. I won't, I have my relationship with him is very strained. I do not forgive him for what he did. But also, like,
does he know you know? Sorry to interject there, but I've been wondering that.
I think he might have a suspicion that I know. He's always denied it, though. He's never admitted that he did anything. Obviously, like, he has no reason to admit that. I confronted him with it once when I was a teenager because I had found some things online that had sort of led me to make some conclusions about what happened. I'll try to be sort of vague about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he knows that I know, but we've never like expressly talked about it. I've never confronted him with like, hey, did you do this or why did you do this? But I've talked to my brothers about it, and I've had deep conversations with them. I talked to my mom about it. I talked to my grandparents about it, who were involved in the legal process when it was all happening. They defended him at that time, and then after he was found not guilty and the case, resolved, my grandmother told me she felt that was a mistake,
Right.
And that, she had felt strongly that he had done something. So, the relationship is strained for sure, but he never did anything to me, and he was always like a loving, caring father for me. Whereas my mother was very disconnected, would, shove me off to live with my dad at the drop of a hat anytime she met someone that didn't want me around. Even when I did live with her, she was drinking, so I had to be a caretaker for her. She was never emotionally available for me. So they've both done terrible things in their own ways, but my mother affected me a lot more with her actions. So.
Well, you started by saying you grew up in a really normal family, and I'm now just thinking it doesn't sound so normal. I mean, it's I'm glad to hear you laugh a little bit. It sounds like uh, you see that, but I'm wondering what made you think this is normal, and how you're feeling now. It sounds like you got out of therapy and that you're off all your meds. I mean, that's the only reason I feel comfortable asking that question. If you were at your wit's end, I probably wouldn't be asking that question, but I am curious since it sounds like you're faring this tragedy very well and in a very productive way. I'm curious what made you think that was normal.
Well, everything was normal until the divorce happened, I would like to say. So between the ages of, 0 and 8, my parents were married. We lived in, your classic suburban neighborhood. We had a new home before, the housing crisis happened. Both of my parents had full-time jobs. I had good relationships with my friends and my neighbors. I went to a normal, elementary school. I got good grades.
So it seemed normal.
Up to the point of the divorce, my life was pretty normal. So maybe I should have framed it that way.
I see. After the divorce, your parents fell apart.
It was,
I see.
After the divorce,
so sorry to hear that.
When everything happened. Oh, that's okay. I think also when I was in the midst of it, right? Like I'm 8 or 9 years old and I'm seeing my parents fight. Obviously it had an effect on me, right? But I had no context. So, I mean, I know that not everybody's parents get divorced, but it was just sort of a thing that was happening to me. And, I managed it the best I could, but I didn't really realize things were like dysfunctional, I guess.
Right.
Until about my freshman or sophomore year of high school, when the depression started to set in. I was having emotional breakdowns. I was fighting with, my mom and her boyfriend at the time, and I was starting to get involved in drugs, and I was slacking off in school. I think that was around the time that I was like, okay, something is really wrong here.
Abby Cuff from the chat again says, if your mother is codependent, that's manipulative. I came from divorced parents at a young age, and my mother became very clingy. She trashed my dad, and I became a weapon. I think she means, I can't see Abby's picture. I'm assuming Abby is a she based on their photo. I'm sorry. I don't know how you identify Abby. Yeah. But it sounds like they're saying that they were weaponized by their parents. That would be my guess. But they say that they were loved.
Yeah. I share a similar experience. My mother would do the same thing with me toward my father. She would tell me things, about him as we were going through the divorce, and she would try to make me, she would paint him in a negative light. My dad tried to mostly stay away from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I saw the interaction between the two of them, and I still remember very clearly there was one night where I was staying with my father. It was his weekend to have me. We were still living in the home that my parents owned together. After the divorce, my mom had moved out, and my dad had kept the house until the housing market crash happened. And I remember very vividly my mother wanted to have me early. And my dad said, no, it's my weekend with him, and, he wants to stay here, and, you can have him on Sunday night or Monday morning or whatever the turnover time was. And I remember very clearly my mother came to the house, knocked on the door, and came in the house and was chasing me around the living room, yelling at me, telling me to come with her.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was very embarrassing. The neighbors ended up calling the police, and there was a whole charade.
Man,
but I remember that very clearly, even all these years later. And my mother is definitely, I've come to find out through therapy that my mother is very much a narcissist. She, it's always about her. She thrives off of conflict. She has very little empathy. Yeah, I've come to learn that. So
My friend, I'm so sorry to hear your story,
so
all you've been through. I'm really happy though to hear how much you have a lot of positivity to show for what you came from. That is, that's worth celebrating. Props to you for getting in therapy, for getting on, and then off your meds. I'm just loving everything you're telling me. You've done the work. I mean, you're a total hero. I mean, you have built your life from, it's not nothing, but it's a lot of dysfunction. It sounds like you've done a lot of work to dig deep and understand what you came from in a productive way in order to build a life, a much better life for yourself. And it sounds like you are doing an excellent job. I'm really glad that you called in and shared. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it sounds like this is more of a confession, kind of like you're just sharing a story. I mean, is there anything that would make this call helpful? I've highlighted a couple sentiments from the chat. It doesn't sound like you really need anything. I've tried to just kind of say some things that reassure you that you're not alone, especially with the parental estrangement stuff, because I know how lonely that can be. It can be a very lonely road. But what would make this helpful?
yeah, so I actually did call in to ask for some advice. I think the context is helpful though, and I really hope that someone listening can kind of take some bits and pieces from it and
Right.
maybe apply it to their current situation. I do want to ask you for some advice. A couple days ago, I got a call from my father's mother, my grandmother on my father's side. My mother had called her. They've had a home phone number for a long time, and everybody in the family has it. So my mother had called her to tell her that my grandmother on my mother's side had a heart attack and is in the hospital. She had some stents put in, and I think she's going to be okay. But she wanted me to call my grandmother, my mother's mom, to just kind of check in with her and see if she's doing all right. I had also stopped talking to her around the same time I stopped talking to my mom, because what had happened was, so I had cut off my mom first, right? And I kept contact with my grandmother. And almost every time we talked, she would, give me a spiel about how I needed to call my mom, and, she's upset, and, she needs to talk to her son. And
Right.
it was just becoming, you kind of understand where I'm going with that. So
Yeah, your mom's using the grandma as a flying monkey.
Yeah, a little bit.
Gave the grandma sorry, people may not know flying monkey. What I mean is the mother, it sounds like the mother is in a manipulative way oversharing with the grandmother to the point that the grandmother is now reaching out to you and in your ear.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what was happening. So they've always been very tight, especially after my grandfather on that side passed away. He was an alcoholic as well. I think he had liver cancer or something. They became very, very close after that, and we're talking, almost nightly for a long time. They may still do that. So yeah, they were very close, and I'm sure that's exactly what was happening. So unfortunately I had to stop talking to both of them.
Your grandma too, it sounds like. Is that right?
Yeah, my grandmother as well.
I'm so sorry.
I kind of had to. Yeah, I've come to terms with it. It is what it is. But now I'm in this situation where, I feel obligated to call her because she's in this time of crisis, right? And I don't. God forbid, my grandmother passes away, and I don't speak to her again. I kind of feel like I may have some guilt if I go down that path. So I've been kind of mulling it over for the past couple days. I haven't called her yet, but I'm trying to kind of decide if the risk is worth the reward, I guess. I mean, part of me does want to talk to her, but at the same time, I know that's going to open communication with my mother one way or another, and I don't know if I'm ready for that.
So is your grandma, I believe you mentioned this, but I've been trying to follow all the facets of your story, and I might have dropped a couple pieces in trying to follow the trail. Is your grandma about to pass? Is that the deal?
Last I heard, what my mother told my father's mom is that she had a heart attack.
Okay, I
She's
got
in
that
the
part.
hospital now, but they placed stents in her heart.
Right.
So my understanding is, if they place stents and the surgery is successful, that, most of the time the patient will survive.
Okay. How old is your grandma?
Oh, she must be in her 70s,
Okay, well, she's
maybe
still
early
young.
80s.
Okay, so she could still have another decade or two, or maybe 3, depending on your genes and how old she actually is.
Right.
I guess I mean your family genes, not your genes, obviously.
I am wearing jeans right now.
Yeah, it's a good question. For those who are just joining, we have a caller who just shared a very tragic story involving a parental estrangement. They are estranged from their mother, and their relationship with their father is very strained due to some addictions on both sides and some mental disorders. And the estrangement got so manipulated by the parents that the grandparents started calling our caller here and getting in their ear about, why aren't you talking to your parents and whatnot. Now the grandmother is in the hospital after a heart attack, and the caller has been ruminating the past week or so, it sounds like, on whether or not they should reach back out to the grandmother, since she may pass, and just kind of make amends to an extent, it sounds like. And
Right.
to you, the caller, I know you're asking for advice. I take your situation very seriously. So I'm reluctant to make a recommendation, air quotes, recommendation here, because, we've only been talking for about 23 minutes, and I take your life very seriously. I don't want to mess up your life. It's a serious question. I will regurgitate some things I've processed in therapy. I'm also estranged from my parents for about 5, let's see, how many years now? I don't think it's quite 5 years yet, but a long time. Let's see, it would have been 2017.
I'm sorry to hear that.
2017. So yeah, roughly 5 years, I guess, something like that. I stopped counting because that's why I'm estranged. But it was a very serious decision. I'm able to kind of, I feel much better. It's a very difficult thing. That's why I'm spending so much time kind of unpacking this with you, the caller.
Yeah.
Going through it, it took me years to come to that conclusion that it was going to take that. I fought that conclusion for years. I sought multiple therapists. I spent tens of thousands of dollars in therapy processing this, because, it's my parents, I wasn't messing around. Like, I wasn't going to do something like this unless I was sure. And that's what people do.
Right.
Not everybody goes to that extent when they're becoming estranged from their parents. But it sounds like you've done that. So I'm giving you a lot of preamble here to set up what I'm about to regurgitate to you so that you know where it's coming from. But years into my estrangement, I was still in therapy. I still do therapy, not like every week or anything, but I'm the kind of person I'll always have some therapy, even if I'm not going through anything crazy, because I just find it valuable and insightful. But there was a couple years ago, I was going through some stuff, and I asked my therapist if I should. I was in a similar space as you, where I was questioning whether I should try to make some amends with certain people that I'm estranged from in my family. And the therapist was quiet for about 10 seconds when I asked for their opinion on this. And then they said, what they said to me was, I'm not telling you not to do it, but I am hesitant to say one thing or another, because what I would hate to happen is to see you undo the years of work and positive work that you've just done. And I would hate for you to accidentally, in one conversation, undo all of that and find yourself in the middle of all the flying monkeys again, and have potentially an even nastier mess, an even more impossible mess to clean up. With that said, these people that I was asking my therapist about were not on their deathbed. They were not about to die. It doesn't sound like your grandma's on her deathbed either. It sounds like she had a bad heart attack, and it sounds like there's a good chance she will recover. So again, I'm being very, I think it's the only respectable thing to do, to not make a specific recommendation, even though you're asking me for advice. So I don't want to, I want to give you some things to maybe chew on, but I'm not going to make a specific recommendation, because it's a very serious thing you're thinking about. But for what it's worth, I have come to the conclusion that, if it were my grandmother and she were on her deathbed, I would probably have one final conversation, just to put make amends before she closes her eyes. I would personally probably want that in my case, but every case is very different. And I can't, you got a lot of serious stuff to consider. You believe your dad is a pedophile. Your mom is a narcissist and an alcoholic. And you know that your grandmother is capable of being a flying monkey for your mother. That's a unique dynamic. You don't see that a lot. Usually the flying monkeys are subordinates or dependents, like the parent will use a kid, like your brother or sister, against you, or an aunt or uncle. Usually it's somebody younger than the person that's using the flying monkeys are usually always a younger person than the narcissist. It's an interesting case you have where your grandmother is flying monkeying for your mom. So I'm being honest with you that if it were me and it were my grandmother, and she were on her deathbed, I probably would make one final conversation, but it would have to be, again, I'm just saying, if I were in your shoes, and I'm not estranged from my grandmother, but if it were me, in my case, I would be having probably a final conversation just to make sure that she knew that I never stopped loving her. Because I think that's the tricky thing about estrangement. Estrangement isn't, I hate you. Estrangement is a boundary. It's a boundary that comes from a place of not being able to subject yourself to the abuse anymore. Once you've identified the abuse and identified that it's never going to get better, you put up a boundary. And for me, it was a very slow process. The boundaries they started way over here, really far away from estrangement, and then they just kept getting closer. The closer as things stopped working, as I just brought the boundary closer, and then closer, all the way up to estrangement. So for me, it would make sense to have one final conversation, because I never stopped loving these people I'm estranged from. I still love them. I forgive them, because I know they can't do any better. But in your case, I'm very hesitant to tell you what to do, because I don't know what that's going to mean for you. And I take that really seriously. But that I do want, you're asking my opinion, and so I'm telling you a little bit about my story and how I would handle that. But again, I fully understand and respect that every situation is very, very different. Just because two people are estranged from someone, it doesn't mean it's for the same reason or that the stakes are equal. So it's complicated, of course. But I don't know if that helps you hearing my story, but I was happy to share a little bit.
Yeah, it helps. Thank you for providing some context about your situation as well. I think where we differ is, you know, I went through therapy, and the focus was, you know, kind of on my mother, but it was more of, you know, helping me, as any good therapist does, right? They just help you cope with your set of circumstances.
That's right.
So we did talk about my mother a lot, but there was never any discussion of like, you know, should I stop talking to my mother, or you know, what should I do to kind of set a boundary, or there wasn't really any of that. I just sort of, one day I was just talking to her, and I just decided enough was enough, you know, and I knew she's tried to stop drinking, and she hasn't been successful for a very long period of time anyway. You know, obviously alcoholism is very, very complicated, and I understand that, but you know, I knew that the likelihood of her quitting drinking was pretty low, and you know, her behavior hadn't changed. So I figured, you know, she's in her 50s. She's, you know, lived her life this way for however long, and you know, she's probably not going to change. So,
Can't teach an old dog new tricks.
You know, yeah, that's really what it comes down to.
Much less a narcissistic dog. We got to stop calling your mom a dog. That was just an expression, of course. I'm not calling your mom a dog. Be very clear.
I've said worse, I'm sure. So, but you hit the nail right on the head, right? It's not that I don't love her. It's just that for my mental health, I just can't, you know? And I just decided one day that enough was enough. And that was the day that was the last time I talked to her. So, no, that does help. Thank you for the context and for the guidance. I'll probably need to sleep on it for a couple more days before I make a decision, but that certainly helped. So, I do want to say, if there's anyone else listening that's going through a similar scenario, I recently found a group called Adult Children of Alcoholics. A lot of that also applies to adult children of dysfunctional families. There's groups that you can join on Facebook. There's actually a website where you can find local meetings in your area where, you know, adult children of alcoholics gather and talk about their experiences. It's sort of like Alcoholics Anonymous, but for children of alcoholics. I haven't attended any meetings yet, but I've been considering it.
Great resource.
I actually looked into it after I watched your Anonymous Live a couple weeks ago.
Great.
I just started looking into, you know, what I could do to further help my situation. So, yeah.
Well, I'd love to see
through that. There's resources out there.
Yeah, that's a great resource. I'm glad you mentioned it, and I'm just so glad and inspired to see the proactivity that you've taken in your circumstance. I mean, so many people get in these situations and they give up, or they just, you know, my parents will never change. All I can do is just change myself. And that's like, you know, it's just so sad when people don't see that it's abuse. Like, abuse isn't just somebody getting hit. You know, abuse is,
right.
It's, you know, there's a lot of people that are never hit, but develop some form of PTSD, and it's diagnosable, and it's measurable, you know, and I'm just really glad that you have taken these positive steps in your life. It gives me hope knowing that, you know, people out there take their lives seriously enough to make some hard decisions. And I just hear so much respect in your voice towards your parents, even though you're estranged from them. And I hear positivity in your voice, and it's so great to hear.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been a long road, but I still have some road to walk. But yeah, I've come a long way. So I do appreciate you taking my call. Big fan. Been watching your videos and listening to your music for a long time. So
thanks for your support. It means a lot to me. And thanks for calling in here.
Thank you for your support.
I guess we're even now. That's not totally fair
I
because I'm
guess
not
I
alone
guess
here.
so.
I'm also regurgitating a lot of stuff from the chat. So, but I do appreciate the sentiment and all the support and just glad to hear your story. That's why we're doing this. Thanks for calling in and sharing. Call in again anytime, and consider joining our Discord community if you want to give us an update here in the future.
Will do.
Take care of
Thank you,
yourself.
Julian.
Good night. Okay, guys, it is 10:30 Central Time, which means it's time for our intermission. So these, if this is your first time watching, this is a short break I take to just clear my head, and so it helps me listen to the next callers for the next hour and a half a little more attentively. And as I like to joke, this is the time of the stream where everybody leaves. So yeah, if you have the guts to stick around for 5 minutes, we'll still be here. And yeah, coming right back. Don't go anywhere. All right. We are back. Okay, we're going to open up these lines again. And we will take, once they're open, the next call comes in. Here we go. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hello?
Hi, what do you want to talk about?
Kind of nervous to talk, but yeah, so when I was a little bit more little, my dad, he was a drinker, a drug abuser, a lot of other stuff. But the worst thing is, I didn't even know this till some time ago. He was diagnosed with bipolar, but I never knew that. I never knew he was diagnosed until some time ago when CPS came.
You said he has bipolar and PTSD?
No, I meant to say I found out because some time ago CPS came to talk with us, with my sister, mostly because when we were younger again, she abused my mom a lot. She mentally abused my sister. Luckily, since I was 4, I didn't get any of the mentally abusive parts.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
But
Are you okay?
Yeah, now I am. Life has been pretty good.
How old are you?
Recently. I'm 13.
Okay. Are you safe?
Yes. I live with my mom and my stepdad now. I've been living good for most since very very good now. I've been made fun of a lot at school for my weight, but I mean now I realize that I don't want to do that, so I start to do a diet, start running 3
Good.
miles every day.
Great. Good. Great for you.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Yeah,
Do you see your dad ever? Do you still see your dad? Sounds like you're living with your mom and stepdad.
Yeah. My stepdad has been there for me since I was like 6, I think. Because my dad went to jail for 5 years after a really bad fight with my mom.
I'm really sorry to hear that. So you do or do not get time with your dad now? I'm trying to figure that out.
He's been released now, but some time ago. He's been released some time ago, but I haven't talked to him in over like 3 years, I think, 2. I barely found out that he moved to Corpus Christi, which kind of got me mad a little bit because he didn't call, told me nothing. And recently when I found about him having bipolar, I finally had some I was finally calm with it. I had something to blame it for him abusing my sister and my mom. I have closure for it.
I'm glad that you have closure. Do you, I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding you. I'm having trouble understanding if you get time with your dad. I know you said that you haven't seen him in 3 years, but is that your choice? Is that his choice? Is that the court's choice?
Honestly, I have wanted to meet him sometimes, but he moved to Corpus Christi. I couldn't. But when he came out of prison, me and my sister would sometimes see him on visits. So we would go to bowling alley somewhere, but
My friend, I'm so sorry to
he
hear your
never went
story.
through.
You're so young. That's a lot. I said, I'm so sorry to hear your story. You're so young. That's a lot to go through. It sounds like you went through this years ago.
Yeah. I mean, the worst thing didn't happen to me. I'm more worried about my sister a lot of times. Not anymore, because she's also been doing great. But, I mean, I like to keep things calm. I don't like to really show my feelings a lot, because if I do, people start worrying. And for me, I feel like it just wouldn't be good like that.
You don't like to show what? Because people will worry?
My emotions.
Your emotions.
I don't want to talk to them. Yeah.
I see.
I felt like since I watched you a lot, especially your old videos, the funny ones, like the car phone song, one of my favorite ones.
I appreciate your support.
Yeah, a lot of your videos definitely did help me, made me laugh a lot. So you were a really good portion of my help when I found out about your YouTube channel.
I'm glad that they could bring some laughter to you in a hard time.
Yeah.
But I want you to know that... Go ahead, sorry.
When I saw you go back live again, I was like, wow, he came back to YouTube again. And I checked it out. Thought it would be like a funny podcast or like a talk. But then I looked at your other video, the previous one, and then I realized it was an anonymous type call. So, through the first one and second one, I was thinking if I should call you. But after the first one, I realized that that all these other people have it worse than me, and I'm happy that I have a good life right now.
Well, I'm glad you called in. I'm glad you knew what you wanted to say. That says a lot about you at your age. I do want to encourage you to not be afraid of your emotions. I know that it must be scary, your emotions. It sounds like your dad was maybe an overly emotional person. If he was in jail for 5 years for a fight he had with your mother, it must have been a pretty serious, pretty loaded fight. And I can only imagine at the age you were that you might have received some signals at a young age that your emotions were not safe. But, you know, with your story, with what you're going through, you know, your emotions are good. Emotions are a healthy thing, but they, you know, some people don't know how to regulate them. It sounds like maybe your dad doesn't know how to regulate his. But I would hate to think that you're going to bottle your feelings up out of fear. You need to find a good outlet for your emotions. I feel pretty comfortable telling you that.
Yeah. Another thing that kind of brought me down was like a year ago, my grandpa died. Me and my sister were very close to him because he's our only living grandpa. And when he died, the worst thing is that day was I was having a really good day that day. With my sister, we came back from the store, and all we see was my mom crying. And all of a sudden, I felt that something bad happened to my grandpa, because he already had a problem. But she took it most hardest. I was able to handle it.
You've lost so many things in your life. You've lost so much.
Yeah.
It must be hard at your age to understand fully, to get your head around it. Sounds like you've got a pretty good head around it. Sounds like you're very strong.
Thank you. But sometimes I do talk to my friends, especially my best friend.
Good.
And he was since I was in 5th grade. He's always helped me. I always helped him.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you have some people. You feel safe with these people. You feel like you can show these people your emotions. You feel like you can let them know you're sad. Yeah, I'm sure you laugh with them if they're your friends. I'm sure you laugh together. But do they ever know when you're having a really hard time?
Yeah.
Good.
One of my friends noticed that I was coming out a lot for some time, and he was starting to get worried into my house, and we talked. I talked to him what happened about our grandpa, because it was like a few days after it, and he was just there listening to me the whole time.
Amazing. I'm glad to hear you have some good friends that you can be vulnerable with. That's great. You know, it's you bring up a good point. It's part of the reason I wanted to do this more vulnerable live stream because, you know, I do believe comedy can be good medicine. I do believe a laugh. I mean, it's just proven. A laugh releases endorphins and stuff. But you know, there is, you know, there's this spectrum to emotions, and you know, a laugh when we're feeling down can be a good thing. But when we're feeling down, we often need more than a laugh. We need a listening ear. We need feedback. We need encouragement. We need empathy. We need just real talk sometimes. And it sounds like when you saw this stream, sounds like you've seen a couple. It sounds like you knew exactly how you needed to use it. And I'm glad that you recognized that. And I'm glad you called in and shared. I'm glad to hear that you've been so strong with all your loss. That's encouraging to hear.
Thank you. Yeah. But now I tried to get in contact with my dad some time ago. He didn't answer, so I don't know if he got a new phone or if he's just busy. But when he got out of jail and I first met him, he was a whole different person. He was blind because I don't remember what they had to do to him because all the alcohol, the drugs. He was just blind. He forgot a lot.
This is your dad?
Yeah.
Oh. So he has some memory loss. Is that right?
Yeah. He had memory loss a lot. He almost a lot of times he would always forget how old I am, the basic stuff about me, which sometimes did kind of get me sad because he was a different person than when I remembered him, because he wasn't a good father to my mom. He wasn't a good husband to my mom, or he also wasn't a good dad to my sister, but he was always taking me out to places and just like do a lot of stuff with me. But I realized that all that stuff was just him and his bipolar, and that just kind of made me realize a lot of the stuff that happened back then. Made me jog back to the day that they fought and went to jail.
How does that feel when your dad doesn't remember things about you? I know you said it makes you sad, but you also said he's not been a good role model for you. So I'm wondering what else that feels like. I'm wondering if you miss him at all. I'm wondering things like that.
Sometimes I miss him. A lot of times I wish I could talk to him about this things, but I can't. So the next person I go to is my stepdad. He's always been a good role model to me,
Great.
teaching me good stuff, teaching me a lot of stuff. We do father and son activities all the time.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you have him.
Such a good relationship with my stepdad. And honestly, I'm happy that he met my mom, because if he didn't, a lot of good stuff would have never happened in my life.
I'm so glad you have your stepdad. I'm with you on that. Sounds like he came in at the perfect time.
But right now, I'm having a good life. My sister, she started to go to this to go to therapy, so she
Good.
could talk things out.
Have you had therapy?
Huh?
Have you had any therapy?
No.
Do you want to?
I don't know. I don't really know, cause I mean, I never thought about therapy ever before. But my sister, it helped her a lot. She was having sleeping problems a lot, and honestly, she has never been better before.
Well,
and I'm happy that she's doing therapy now, because a lot of times I'm scared that my sister's gonna do something really dumb. But I'm always there to talk to her.
Does it seem like the therapy has helped your sister?
Yes, a lot. There was a point where she was at her all-time low. One night, she came to me and told me that she was about to kill herself. And once she fell asleep, once she fell asleep in my room, I went to her room and I saw a knife right there. And I hid it away from her so she could never find it.
Wow, you are a good brother. That's a very brave thing to have done.
Before I came into the call, I was about to tell my sister that she should join your live one day.
She could definitely call in.
She does.
I want to encourage you to consider therapy for yourself. I'm suggesting that because you've been through a lot, and because you just said that it's been transformative for your sister. You said it's helped her so much. Therapy can help anyone. I don't know what kind of signals you get from your parents, but therapy is not just for girls; it's for anyone. And I'm concerned about one thing you said. There's only one thing you said that concerns me, and it's that you bottle up your emotions. I think therapy could really help you unpack why you do that. You're at a pivotal time in your life right now. Your teen years are the perfect time to start figuring out why you do that, what makes you do that. And because if you don't do that now, if you don't get to the bottom of that now, it's just going to become easier and easier the older you get to keep those feelings bottled up. And getting to the bottom of that is not going to become easier on a short phone call with me. You need someone with you in your life regularly who can help you process what got you to that point and to help pull that forward in your life in a productive way, in a positive way. I want you to think about getting some therapy, just like your sister is. It could be beneficial for both of you. It doesn't sound like you're suicidal, but you don't need to be suicidal to benefit from a therapist.
Yeah, my mom, I was just talking with her, and she suggested that I should try therapy.
What'd you say?
I said I would think about it, and I mean, now that you bring it up, I'm starting to think about it more.
Good. I get therapy even when I'm not having a crisis. Therapy's good all the time for anything. You don't want to go pay someone money for no reason, but, you've got some real life challenges. You've got a real background that is worth processing with someone. It would be very beneficial for you, I feel, especially if you're bottling up your emotions.
Sometimes I think I only had 2 anxiety attacks before, and that's just because of either school, and the other one was just because everything that was going on in my life at that point.
Right.
Yeah. Another of my friends go to therapy because he had an identity crisis, and when he told me about that, I did see a lot of stuff that could point to that when I was hanging out with him. And right now he's still doing it. And I mean, I know a lot of people are doing therapy right now. So sometimes I do wonder if I should do therapy.
I'm glad you're thinking about it. I'm not going to tell you to do anything, of course. I can't make you do something. But, yeah, I'm just listening to your story. And I've gone to therapy for much less extreme things than what you've been through at your age. I mean, I just feel like you've got a really high quality few years ahead of you where therapy, you're going to get a lot more out of your therapy in this next 3 years than you will, I'll put it this way, I'll put it a different way. If you invest a year or 2 in therapy now, it'll be like 10 years of therapy later on because you're so young and your brain is still developing so rapidly. In a sense, it's cheaper therapy now for you because your brain is still so malleable and flexible. Flexible is a better word. It's not like someone's going to change your mind, but it's flexible for you. And I would hate for you to become an adult who still has not learned to express their emotions in a healthy way with what you've been through. That would be a very easy, slippery slope to slide down. So, glad you're thinking about therapy. Highly recommend you get into some. Find it, and I want you to know, it can take a long time to find a therapist that you feel connected with. Sometimes it can take months to find one. It doesn't always for everybody. Sometimes you get lucky and the first one you meet, you feel good about seeing regularly, but it can take time. So if you go once or twice and you see a few therapists and you're like, I'm not liking this, don't give up. Keep going until you find one you like. You will find one.
Yeah, I mean, my mom supports everything I do that will be positive in my life. Like when I tried to go into a diet, he went right on board, and now me and her, we go running at this lake that's by our house, 3 miles.
Wow.
And honestly, I'm doing a lot of progress just in my first week.
Good. Man, I'm so impressed with you. If I had the head on my shoulders, you had it. If I was thinking about life the way you are at 13, I think it's really inspiring what you're sharing. I love hearing how you're approaching life. The only thing I'm concerned about is the emotions thing, and we can't get to the bottom of that on a short phone call, but I'm glad to hear you've been thinking about therapy. I hope you get into some.
Yeah. Honestly, me talking to you does kind of help me being able to talk to somebody that I always watched for since I was like 8, I think, and being able to talk to you just kind of helped me, talk to somebody that I liked a lot.
That means a lot to me. Well, I'm glad you felt comfortable calling in. That's great. That's what we're doing this for. Of course, I'm not a therapist. I want to make sure you understand that at your age. I'm not a therapist. This isn't therapy. I can't give you therapy here. But, I'm glad that you're open to therapy. Glad you're not totally closed off to it, because a lot of people that call in here, I have to convince them to get therapy. So I think you got a head start. That's great. Consider getting in our Discord community. It's a good place for people to, you're fairly young. Most of the people in there are probably, a little bit older than you, but there are some younger people in there. It's a safe place. We keep it pretty clean, so it's not, you're not at risk of anything weird happening in there. It's pretty low risk. So maybe you could hop in there and find some people your age to share with anonymously, or hang out with. And I would love to hear an update from you on how the therapy's going in there.
All right.
Well, thanks for calling and sharing. Call back anytime.
Well, thank you for listening to me.
Take care of yourself. Good night. Okay, we're going to open up these lines again. Lines are opening. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hi.
What you want to talk about?
So I called in a while ago 2 other times, and last time I did, you told me to give you an update in like a couple of months. So I want to do that.
Okay.
Just give you an update. So last time I told you all of the kind of goals that I had, and I met all of them, and I even took some suggestions from the chat, because I got a job. I finally, made some reliable friends. I started losing weight.
Good.
I stopped with the self-harm for good.
Great.
I started a project that's kind of an invention that I could possibly sell one day with crocheting.
Cool.
I am getting better sleep.
Awesome.
Kind of regaining my memory a little bit.
Amazing. The chat's lighting up. They're loving hearing this.
And I'm just asking, do you remember in Anonymous Lives 6 and 4? That's where I was.
I don't know any of the callers that call in. I don't take names. I don't record any of the information. So
Yeah,
I would have to go back. Your voice does sound familiar, but I can't remember any of the elements of your story. But I'm happy to hear the positive update. That's great. And I'm glad that the chat and I didn't lead you astray too far. Sounds like things are going okay.
Yeah, I was the one with the Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm cleaning my room right now, actually.
Good.
And everything is going kind of uphill right now. And I really want to thank you, because I really don't think that I could have found the motivation without you. And you, I don't know, what you said, like, when you actually motivated me meant so much more than you could ever imagine to me. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you.
Thanks for calling in and giving us the update. I appreciate that. Are you in our Discord?
No, but I'm going to join.
Okay. That's a great place for updates too.
Yeah, I feel like I could relate and maybe talk to that last caller because I could relate to some of his issues. So I think, I could talk to him, maybe help him with some stuff if he needs it. But
okay, yeah.
And he can help me too.
I think the Discord would be a better place for that, just only because we have some people calling in here that are at their wits' end, and we want to respect the people who are calling with real problems. But but I'm glad to hear you're going to be in the Discord. I'm so happy to hear about the update. And
I just wanted to call to give an update. I'm sorry for holding up the line.
No problem at all. Actually, I'm sure the caller is still listening. So why don't I give you 30 seconds to share with them, and then you can put anything else after 30 seconds in the chat for them to see, because I bet they're still watching.
Yeah. I meant in the Discord, like chat with them in the Discord.
Oh. Okay, gotcha.
Meant.
Gotcha. Okay, well that's fine too. I wasn't. If you wanted to say something, I would let you. But yeah, I think the Discord's probably the best place for that. Thanks for understanding on that point. And I'm so happy to hear the update. That things are looking up for you. That's great and cool. Really cool to hear about the invention. Way to go. How old are you?
Yeah. Well, I was 13 last time I called, but now I'm 14.
Oh, wow. Hey, what an enterprising young man. I'm impressed. Well, thanks for giving us the update, and looking forward to seeing you in the Discord.
No problem.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just taking some notes on the last caller. I try to do some chapter markers on these so that people scrubbing through 3 hours of video have some context for a call that might be valuable for them. So I try to take notes on these callers as we're speaking. And sometimes it takes me a little back. All right, open up the phone lines again. What do you guys think? Should we allow updates on this show? I'm not going to hold here long because we already have calls coming in, but I am curious in the chat to see. I wasn't going to toast that person, but well, I'm just curious the feedback that you guys might have on that. How should we handle people calling in with updates? Curious. Penny for your thoughts. Next caller. Here we go. Hi, thanks for calling. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, thanks for calling. What do you want to talk about?
Hi. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous.
No need to be nervous. What's on your mind?
So, sorry. I don't even know really where to start.
Going through a lot?
Yeah. Last year, I made an attempt of suicide.
I see. I'm glad you're still with us.
Thank you.
How old are you?
I'm 30. I'll be 31 in a couple months.
Okay. So what happened? What led to the suicide attempt?
Mainly paranoia.
Okay.
I'm diagnosed with bipolar depression. And it's not something I ever thought I would do. I was one of those people that anytime anybody would, ask about it or, hint at, like, are you going to do something stupid? I'd be like, no, I'm too much of a coward to do it, that kind of thing. So it wasn't even something that was, like, fathomable for me, I don't even know. Yeah. Um,
How long have you been dealing with the bipolar depression and the paranoia? When did that start?
I first, my first hospitalization was when I was 15. I had a big nervous breakdown, where I wasn't able to eat, um, and uh, I lost a lot of weight, and at the time I didn't even, once again, it wasn't even something I thought was, you know, didn't know that there could be something mental that was wrong with me or whatever. It was, my mom was a nurse, and she took me to multiple emergency rooms, um, throughout that month, and all the tests came back negative. They even took me to a neurologist because I had a fall when I was a baby, where I hit the out of a stroller, hit the back of my head, and I had some trauma. So they wanted to make sure it wasn't something from that. Um, Finally, the last ER um, suggested that maybe possibly it could be something, psychological, and so my mom reluctantly, admitted me to the hospital and all of that. And after about 2 weeks, I did fairly well because I came from an abusive background, a stepfather that was mentally, physically, emotionally abusive to me, um, and sexually abusive to some of my family members. He was a We found out later in the marriage that he was, a convicted sex offender previous to the marriage.
Mm.
But he had, his, as narcissists and crazy people do, um, not crazy, I'm sorry, not mentally ill people do, um, and criminals do, I should say, I guess, um, he showed my mom a letter saying his mom wrote to the judge and saying that it was just his ex-wife's way of getting back at him and using her daughter, as a weapon against him to say that he did something to her and all that, and blah blah blah. Um, so that's just a little context for my childhood.
I'm sorry to hear about all you've been through.
It's okay, especially from hearing, it can always be worse. I'm always, I am, like one of your previous callers, like he said, the one that was married, where he said that he tends to be the person that always prepares for the worst, and his wife prepares or expects the best out of people. That's kind of the dynamic. Part of this is, I when part of my initial healing, with all this and getting into therapy and on medication and stuff, was I came out of the closet as gay, and that helped. That kind of like, that was, that point forward was like, it was like I was a completely different person living a completely different life, is how it felt in my in my head. So, but anyways, my dynamic with my boyfriend is he's the one that's, he's always sees the silver lining and looks for the good in people, and I'm the one that's always, probably because of my past with abuse and everything, always prepare for the worst, expect the worst, and yeah. So, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm going off on tangents.
No, all seems relevant to me.
So your question was how long? How long have
been dealing with this since, so probably my whole life, because I was probably just undiagnosed. But like, cause like thinking back on it, like retrospectively, um, I was always an anxious kid, shy, anxious kid. And like how, it was described to me is that I have constant sensory overload.
Hmm.
Um, so like just everything was more extreme to me than it was to the average person. Like when I felt embarrassed, it was like extreme embarrassment. If I felt happy, it was all of that. So I think that's part of the bipolar um, side effects.
Right.
But I did get yeah, it was a vicious cycle for some reason, definitely for sure. And it has a lot to do with family. A lot of my older family members had gone through similar cycles. Like both my grandfathers were alcoholics. My mom's mom was physically abusive to her, and then she got murdered when she was young. So my mom had to be adopted, and my dad's mother was sexually abusive to him.
Hmm.
So that was its own dynamic, and probably messed him up, and why my mom's and dad's marriage didn't work out. Just like you said, vicious family cycles.
Sounds like there's so much dysfunction in your family, and you're trying to be the Lone Ranger, making new, healthier patterns.
Was trying to. I had made a lot. The fact that I was even able to like function, period, was a lot. Like my mom is the person that's closest to me, and she's the one that's I always call her my angel on earth, because she's the one that knows the most about me, knows what I've been through, and can see things from my perspective. And has always been there to, I guess, save me, from myself and from others. Anyways, what I was getting at is that I had made a lot of improvement. I was able to finally, I had to drop out of high school because of me being sick. I never was able to go back because of the paranoia, and eventually was able to get my GED and start college the month after that, when I was around 19. And then once again struggled with, in and out of psychiatric care, and in and out of school because of that, because of not being able to finish classes and things like that. So I made a lot of improvement, finally started working when I ran out of financial aid with college. So I just started working and came out of the closet around the same time, and I got my first boyfriend around the same time, and everything was looking up, and I just focused on I also met my best friend, who's now my current partner. We've been best friends for 10 years and together for about 3 now.
Wow.
And he's been a big blessing and to me. But paranoia is kind of put like a barrier between me and a lot of my relationships, where it can get so bad, that the people that I trust the most, my brain won't let me even trust them in those moments.
Right.
So that becomes really difficult. So I'm sure. Are you aware of the show, the Black Mirror?
Yes. I don't watch a lot of TV. I've seen a few episodes.
Probably something I shouldn't have watched. But at the time,
I'm with you on that.
okay.
I'm with you on that. That show is traumatizing. I'm actually,
Yeah.
I'm not like,
I mean,
I'm not anti many things, but that show it cannot be good for people's mental health. It's
right.
so bleak.
But yeah. uh, See, like if I could go back in time, I probably wouldn't have watched it. But like I would, as when I was quote unquote healthy, I'm into that kind of stuff. I like the psychological thriller stuff. I like things like the Twilight Zone. Real big fan of that and all that.
Twilight
So
Zone manages to be a lot
there was
less
something.
unsettling. Like I feel like every episode of Black Mirror
Oh yeah,
leaves.
a lot more.
Yeah, Black Mirror
Yeah.
is just like it's so depressing. It makes you think that it's the end of the world. It's like it doesn't give me hope for
Right.
humanity at all.
Right.
It doesn't give us enough credit. I think we're a little bit better than Black Mirror, to be fair.
Yeah. And my boyfriend's a really big fan of like dystopian like stories and things like that too. So it's kind of just like something that piqued their interest. And
Right.
at the time, I was okay mentally, so it wasn't. I didn't even think twice, about it. Nothing had ever and it didn't affect me even at the time. Like I didn't start watching it because of like any reason. It's just the show ended, and then all this stuff happened.
Right.
And then like looking back on it retrospectively, it kind of. Anyways, what
I'm glad we agree
all
about that.
all
That
of
makes me a little more
yeah,
hopeful about humanity because I've actually not talked a lot about Black. I tend to not talk too much about things I don't like because I just don't want to be negative. But I'm glad we talked about Black
right,
Mirror because it gives me hope that there's other people out there who have just kind of. I haven't boycotted that show. There's a couple interesting episodes actually. In fact, White Christmas is unbelievable. One of the best things
right,
I've seen on
yeah,
TV.
and
Uh,
the
unbelievable.
one that won the Emmy or whatever, where it's like she's in an alternate world because she has like cancer or something, and it's a way for her to escape.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen that one.
That I forget. El Dorito or something like that. I can't remember. Somebody in the chat will probably say that's what
Yeah,
it's called.
the chat will
But
correct us.
um, all that to say that my life kind of felt like that twice in the past since 2018. One episode, episode. Once in November of 2018, and then once in November of San June. Yeah, and there you go. I think it's a city, El Dorito. So the same time of the year in 2018 and 2020. And a lot of people, when I tell them that, they think it's like, did the pandemic affect you? And I was like, no, actually, I was one of the few that kept working during the pandemic, and like I was okay. You know what I mean? Like, I did break my elbow at work, but that wasn't like that was my fault. I fell off of something I shouldn't have been standing on. So, and I just stayed around and and worked and helped as much as I could run a register and all that.
Right.
So, but in 2018 and 2020, my paranoia kind of made me think that everyone around me was like manipulating me, and it was something I hadn't experienced before. Like I had experienced paranoia in different ways as like a teenager with my trauma and everything, but not
Right.
like this. It like literally felt like I was in some kind of candid camera Black Mirror
I see the
type situation where
now I get the Black Mirror reference. I
it
see.
what was that?
I said I was just noting that now I'm understanding the Black Mirror reference, and I'm glad we didn't just go off on a tangent
Yeah.
about TV. Now I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry to hear that was such a
So,
rough time.
like I was in some big giant social experience, but experiment or whatever. But it obviously, logically, the logic me said, this can't be real, Yeah, the Truman Show, exactly. And your logic self is always like, obviously I'm not special. Like, why would this be happening to me? Like, I'm not special enough that anybody would care to do this.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then the other half of you is like, well, you don't have to be special for this to be happening to you. Like, so I go back and forth like that, and I was basically going in a spiral like that, and it got so bad that I had to stop working, went on a leave of absence, and switched psych providers. He wanted to change up my medications, which probably was the worst thing that could happen until I got stable, or at least stable enough that changing medications was the right step. And it kind of just all a recluse, and I just kept spiraling until I felt like my only way out was to not be here anymore. And so that's what I tried. And weirdly, things didn't, they've gotten better, surprisingly to me, of course.
That's good.
The medication from the person, I'm on the same medication I was on before.
Let's not get hung. Let's not watch the chat if you don't mind. I just want to have a conversation with you.
Oh,
the
okay.
The chat's going to suggest
I'm
things.
sorry.
It might derail us. I want to make sure we're. Of course, the chat is a resource I want you to visit, and I'm going to highlight some things from the chat. But I feel like our conversation will suffer if we're both staring at the chat. I want to get to the bottom of what would make this a helpful call for you.
Absolutely.
Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. And I don't really know what I'm looking for, but I thought, why not, with this kind of kind of cheesy, but it's the way that Mr. Beast, the YouTuber, puts it. Like, if you put more heads together, you get more done. I don't know. If you can get the most amount of minds together, you get more done. And that's I watched it. I forget the podcast of I forget the two guys' names they interview like YouTubers, and they were one of them that I watched. But he put it. It's been said many times in many ways, but just the way he put it, like that's how he grinded. Like he got his friends to help him think of ideas, and that's why he hired more people, anyways. But I thought, like other people say, I watched you for your videos for years for obvious reasons, and when I saw that this was the same situation, and the fact that this just happened a year ago, I thought it would be interesting to see if anybody has any perspective or
Right.
advice or anything.
So what would make this a good call for you? What would help?
See, that's what I don't know. I don't know what I'm specifically looking for. I'm just.
Well, you've been through a lot. I mean, I've been taking some notes. I mean, you mentioned your suicide attempt. You mentioned you've been suffering with paranoia since you were 15. You're 31 now. You've had bipolar depression for about the same length of time, it seems. I'm wondering if you're still in therapy. Seems like you got some diagnoses early on. I wonder if that was through a therapist or a shrink of some kind. And if you're still in therapy to unpack, I mean, you've got a lot to unpack. I would love to think that you're not just relying on the occasional helpline or a call with us here on YouTube. Do you have someone you're processing this stuff with?
Yeah, like I said, I've been in and out of psychiatric care a lot, like multiple times. I've had multiple therapists that didn't work out, and basically
outside of psychiatry.
Once I got stable, like physically on medication through a psychiatrist, I would just go to them, for med management. And I would only see them once every 3 months for med management. But after the suicide attempt, I did try a therapist for a little while, and
just to be very clear,
my partner wanted me to go.
Just be very clear.
Try it again.
Sorry, I keep cutting in. I'm just trying to understand. Your therapist now is not a psychiatrist. Is that right?
So it's separate. So I have.
Okay.
Psychiatrist is like a medical doctor that prescribes medication, and then I have a therapist who could either be like a psychologist, PhD, or a therapist,
Okay.
or a social worker.
I just want to make sure you have someone on your team that's not just prescribing you a bunch of pills. I mean, obviously there's a time and place for pills, and people need them at certain times in life.
I mean, the guy that I'm seeing is, it's one of those like local, provided by the state, county, whatever.
Okay.
So he sees a lot of patients, so he just goes through his standard, are you doing okay, or what do you have any side effects? Is it making you feel, are you feeling this, and if you check, if you mark all the checks and you're fine, then there's no reason for him to change or anything or seek anything further. So he just, fills the script, and you see him again in 3 months. If you have any issues in 3 months, then they go from there,
So are you getting talk therapy regularly or no?
Not anymore. I was after the, like I was saying, my partner wanted me to go see somebody just to try it. So I agreed with him, I agreed to at least try it.
Did you try it?
Talking with him, I was like, I don't really know why I'm here or what I'm looking for or how you can help, but this is my situation. And the first person I spoke with, she was still getting through the process of like getting to know me, and then she left the company or left the place, and I got switched to another provider. And then I didn't really mesh with him, so I just kind of stopped going to him. So, and because I've done better, and because I've been better, I'm not able to work because of the paranoia, and just I don't want to get and put myself in a situation to where I get back into that place again, or even get anywhere near it. So I'm just kind of like, leaning on my partner, who's very supportive and agrees with that. So just kind of currently existing and trying to stay stable,
I do feel like there's a therapist out there waiting for you that you haven't met yet. It can take a long time. I said this to another couple callers in this stream. It can take a long time to find the right therapist for you.
And I agree with that. Mm-hmm.
But
it's just, just right now, I think it's just not like, I don't think it's a good time. Also recently moved and not completely transitioned over with insurances and stuff like that. So once that process, I'll probably look into it again, but yeah, it's going to be a while before that happens. So
I'm going to argue with you a little bit because I care about you. I'm not going to debate you, but I am going to argue with you a little bit because I care. I mean, you're mentioning some serious stuff. You had a recent suicide attempt, and you mentioned paranoia, bipolar depression. And it seems like mostly you've had psychiatric care, and I'm glad you've had good results with that. But I am going to argue, and I'm already seeing some chat coming in on this same point that, therapy can, I'm trying to be very careful here. Therapy, the benefit of therapy is that it does things medicine can't do. Medicine doesn't get to the bottom of things. It doesn't help us get to the bottom of things. Therapy, with your story, I mean, you mentioned you're in your 30s now, so you're now at the age, this is why I'm arguing with you, you're now at the age where any therapy you do, anything you go to therapy for, it's going to take you a lot longer to get to the bottom of things than it would have a long time ago. It's not to say that you can't get some real value out of it immediately with the right person, because you can. But again, being in your 30s, it's going to take you a little more effort to get to the bottom of some of these things that now you're so far removed from. So I think you can't get in soon enough. I mean, what I would be, if I were you, based on the notes I've taken here on our call, I would be going into a therapist trying to figure out what led to the paranoia, what led to the suicide attempt. because that kernel of truth that's in there, knowing what is in there, what little monster is in your head, whatever that little voice is, it came from somewhere when you were 15, you said.
Right.
And figuring that out is a key. And that key is the key to the door of ultimately a lot of peace of mind and fewer, if not no medicine. A smaller amount of medicine or no medicine. A lot of people get off their medicine when they get these keys. And that's what therapy is. I think it really sucks. It really sucks to hear that you had the experience you did with your therapist, that it sounds like you kind of got passed around a little bit because people were leaving the company and whatnot. This is why I really, I think it's great to find, I think any therapist you jive with is the best therapist for you. However, I do think that's a big problem with a lot of these big organizations that have like 20 therapists, and and the therapists are employees and they leave and go to different companies. It's kind of like musical chairs. That's not helpful as somebody that needs to get to the bottom of things, because every time you start over with a therapist, you're starting over with that therapist. You can't you can have a therapist share notes, but that's not the same thing as history, as like a relational history. That's what you pay for. Right. Your therapist is kind of like a really smart friend. That's what a therapist is. They're a really smart friend, and you pay them. But you're calling in here tonight, and you didn't know what you were looking for, and so that I kind of picked a small fight with you because I care about you.
I get it. My partner completely agrees with you. He actually works in mental health, so
okay.
That's was the first thing for him, to go to, and he's also that kind of smart friend for me too, and in the ways that I'm dumb, as relationships can go sometimes. He says that he was able to think himself like, I'm not your therapist. I'm not going to be your therapist because I am your partner. Mm-hmm. That is not my job, not my place, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So, because naturally while I'm going through this crisis, is I'm venting to him and having my emotional breakdowns and freakouts and everything, word vomiting with him. So. Mm-hmm. He's like, this is stuff you should be talking to a therapist, over and over. So he agrees, and I'll probably will.
Yeah, I think it's never soon enough, especially at your age.
Probably basically the only thing that can be said. It's like, just get therapy.
Well, the case in point to me is that you called in and we talked about a lot of things, and I took a lot of notes, and then when I asked what would make the call helpful, you didn't know the answer, and so that's to me the case in point.
That's an answer. Right?
That's the answer. I think that's right. So Atris Oranus from the chat had a thought that I'll share, and it gave me a thought too. So I'll share two thoughts here. Atris Oranus from the chat says, if I may suggest, see if you can find a therapist that knows accelerated resolution therapy. It's called ART. It's an interesting idea. Now, nobody in this chat can tell you to go do something, of course, but we're just gonna share some ideas. What's cool about that? It's similar to EMDR. I'm not sure if you're familiar with ART.
Yeah, I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with it, but I've heard of it and read up on it very minutely. EMDR, like when I saw he said eye movement, so that made me think of that.
Yeah. That eye movement stuff. There's a lot of science behind it. It really does work. There's these Vietnam War veterans coming back.
Say it can backfire though.
Well, here's the thing you bring up a good point. So the thing you got to know about EMDR, there's first of all, there's a lot of horrible EMDR therapists out there. I will say that. And I know this is coming from the guy that says I'm not anti many things. I am very much anti any therapist that is going to tell you, I'll give you, we'll do 1 or 2 sessions of EMDR and you'll be fine. Even doing 4 sessions of EMDR often isn't enough.
Right.
It's like
or the ones that want you to be their guinea pig because they just recently got their license or whatever it is that they need for it.
It's really
actually the lady that I was saying before I switched therapists. She actually had that conversation with me. She's like, I recently just got certified in this new thing, so I wanted to try
Yeah, that's
potentially
not.
try it with you. So I was like, that made me feel sketchy too.
Yeah, it's really popular EMDR right now. So there's a lot of people offering it that don't know what they're doing. What you want is a level 2 ERDIA certified. It's something like that. Let me look this up. Level 2 cert. You want a level 2 certified, specifically from the original organization that invented this, because there's a lot of certifications out there that are not
Right.
as good as the others, but you want a level 2 certified. There's only 2 levels. You're either a level 1 or a level 2.
And I'm guessing there's some way I can verify that, probably publicly.
You just ask them if they're licensed in it. It's from the, I'm trying to find the organization. It's EMDRIA, I think is what, yeah, that's what it is. I wasn't wrong. EMDRIA. That's you want a level 2 certified from EMDRIA. Now, and depending on how extreme your case is, it could take months of processing. And when you said it backfired, sometimes EMDR can backfire. It's not that it backfires. It's that if you don't take it seriously and take your time with it and do the work, you're opening a closet full of junk, and stuff is just pouring out, and
right,
you got to clean it up,
and it can bury you. Yeah.
And it takes time. So these horror stories that you hear of people who have bad experiences, they've either had a really bad therapist that wasn't taking it seriously, or they have some of these therapists have clients that can't afford to do months of EMDR,
right.
And so they'll sell them on like 4 sessions. And that is just horribly irresponsible, in my opinion. And I mean, there's some cases where maybe, like for like a smaller case, I'm trying to be very careful here. For simpler cases, I'm sure that there's no harm in doing a few EMDR sessions. But, for some, I mean, you mentioned you've been dealing with paranoia for more than half of your life now, and bipolar depression, and you had a suicide attempt. So it's my guess, as somebody who's not certified in this, but somebody who, I've clearly got a lot of opinions about EMDR. My guess is that it's not going to be a short thing for you. It's probably going to take a sizable investment of time and money to get through it. I mean, once you open those can of worms, all the feelings come back, and you're reliving those traumas, as an adult, and you literally go back to that place in your head. That's what it does, and it forces you to confront it. It's kind of like an initiation ceremony, and you're being initiated into your new clean life. It's a rite of passage.
Right. And just thinking about that, like going through this, just because of how it almost killed me to begin with.
Right.
When I was 15, because I was physically dying because I think I was drinking Gatorade and like able to eat like oranges, but I wasn't really able to sleep. And I lost like 40 pounds in 2 weeks just from not consuming anything. And I went to the hospital like at 113 pounds, and I'm like 5'7", so a healthy me is like 150. So I was, my kidneys were spilling proteins, and I was on the cusp of dying. So just thinking about revisiting this
That's
stuff.
so scary.
I've done so much work, personal work on getting through and accepting and all of that I don't know.
I just want to reiterate how much I'm hearing here. I mean, we often don't appreciate the things that we go through in life because we're in it. We're not objective. We're subjective. It's hard to see our own experience objectively. And so, I just want to repeat back to you that you've been through a lot. And I'm glad that your suicide attempt failed. I'm glad you're here with us. I'm glad you're here sharing. I'm glad you're looking for answers. Of course, I'm going to keep ranting on the therapy thing because we've been talking for over half an hour now. And a second ago, you said you didn't know what would help. And I'm not going to sleep well knowing that you're still out there searching, knowing you've had a suicide attempt and knowing that you're dealing with paranoia. So I would love to hear that tomorrow you'll do some Googling for, this brings me to the closing of a thought I didn't finish when I was ranting about these huge therapist organizations that have like 20 therapists on staff. I would love to hear tomorrow that you are looking for in your community or your city a private practice of one therapist, like a one therapist. There's got to be dozens where you live. Don't tell me where you are, but even if you're in a small town, there's got to be at least a handful of good ones that have a solo private practice. And that's the best way to guarantee that your therapist isn't going to change companies or get fired or, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, I guess I'm just concerned. And I'd love to know that you're not going to just keep looking tomorrow for what the answer is. Because I think you're going to find the answers you need in therapy.
When I do reach back out, that's probably what I'll do is I'll go that's actually a really good recommendation is the solo practice instead of going through, I'll keep my psychiatrist the same who prescribes my medication just to keep that constant, but then I'll, look out for, so that also opens up, the field of where I could either find a social worker who has a private practice or a
right.
PhD psychologist or whoever, takes my insurance.
Psychologist is a pretty good idea in your case because you're not just dealing with there's no just dealing with, there's no, I'm trying to be careful. There's, problems are problems, but if you're dealing with,
right.
if you're dealing with paranoia, psychologist is probably a good thought. Might be a little more expensive. I don't know if you can afford that. Can you afford, do you have resources to pay for what you need?
I have Medicaid currently, so
okay.
A lot of the places that I would go to, because of the laws of my state, they take those patients. So I probably won't have an issue finding at least a handful of people, to try out.
Right. Well, you're really strong.
And if worse comes to worse, I can go ahead and marry my partner. So we're going to do that eventually anyways.
Good.
Get on his insurance.
Good. That'll be helpful. That'll be helpful to have that. I know the options are limited with certain things like Medicaid. It can be hard with therapy. A lot of these plans just skimp on the therapy, but it's so important. It really shouldn't be that way. It's kind of sad to me. Everybody should be able to afford therapy. It shouldn't be this novel luxury. It really bums me out that it's such a novel luxury.
Right. I was going to point on that too. It's just so hard to, like you said, it's so hard to find especially depending on where you are. So the advent of telehealth it's a start, but it's not perfect, So.
Right. Well, thank you so much for calling in and sharing your story. I'm glad we got to talk tonight. I hope any of this was helpful.
Thank you for doing this for everyone, not just me.
Yeah, and thank you for using this space. There's so many people calling in here, they don't know how to use it, or they're calling in for the wrong thing, and we have to toast them. I'm glad that I love it when we get to talk to someone for a long time like you, and really try to get to the bottom of some things. Of course, I will tell every caller that this is no substitute for therapy, and I'm glad to hear you're not opposed to therapy, and also really glad to hear that you're not opposed to boycotting Black Mirror with me. I think that deserves a laugh track. All right. Well, I'm not sure my soundboard's working, but I'm doing drum rolls and stuff. I don't know if anybody can hear those. I think
it came through.
Oh, it came through on your. Okay, I can't hear it in my headphones for some reason. It was really nice talking to you. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope you get the peace you need in your life. You certainly deserve it for all the work you've been doing.
Thank you, and hope everybody in the chat and you, Julian, have a good night and positive vibes.
Positive vibes. Take care of yourself. Call back again anytime. Hope to see you in the Discord.
Absolutely. Of course.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, guys. Gosh, we got 5 minutes left. I don't know what we can do in 5 minutes. I mean, it's going to be a can of worms. And I do get very tired at midnight because I have more things to do, and I have to get my kids to school in the mornings. So that's why I said earlier I'm getting like 4 hours of sleep, or sometimes 6. 6 is a good night. So I'm wondering what we should do here. We could, let's see, what's the chat saying? There's some funny chats in here. I'm glad the soundboard was working, because for some reason I can't hear it in my headphones tonight. I thought maybe I was just like making these awkward pauses and there was no sounds coming through. But you know what? I think what we'll do is I'm going to pop into the Discord for 5 minutes, and we'll just hang out in the voice channel for 5 minutes, because we really can't. What I would hate to do is open these lines again and get somebody that really needs to talk, and I'm not able to follow the conversation. I think that would do more harm than good. I take these calls very seriously. And so I think we're going to close this stream for the night. We'll hang out in the Discord for 5 minutes. Anybody can come. And we'll just goof around for 5 minutes and have a good time. It looks like we have a birthday in 5 minutes. Yeah, we'll ring in some birthdays. How about that? That seems like a positive thing we can do. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for another great stream. I always look forward to these. This is the highlight of my life right now. This is by far my favorite project I have going. It just feels so. It just feels so meaningful. Like some of these callers calling in, sharing the things they're sharing. It breaks my heart hearing that these people don't have outlets to talk, or that they don't feel safe talking to family or counselors. And that was kind of my hunch in starting this place, that there were people that didn't know where to talk about things. And so I'm glad people are using this anonymous outlet for that. You guys are awesome for supporting these callers. This chat has become such a resource for everybody calling in to go back and revisit. So thank you guys for all the thoughts. I wish we could pull more of them, but I try to be very careful what I pull from the chat. I hope you guys understand that. But I'm glad it's all there, because it's one thing if I say something from the chat, and it's another thing if the caller goes back after the call and reads through it, because, it's different. I believe it's different. So I hope that makes sense. We do these 3 times a week right now, on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Central. And I'm toying, I'm entertaining, I'm considering, I'm actually not toying or entertaining. I'm very cautiously considering doing some life coaching on a very limited basis, just a few sessions here and there to see what that could turn into. I do have more to share on that eventually, but I'm just generally gauging the interest on that. So if that sounds interesting to you, you can email this address and just say you're generally interested in it. The email is here, js@anonymouslive.com. I have not done anything to consider what pricing on this would be like, but it would probably be on par with your average life coach fee, which I'm aware that ranges. But this would be a place where we can go a little bit deeper, go a lot deeper than just a 30-minute phone call. And I do believe there are my only reservation in doing this is that I'm not going to take on someone unless I believe it's in an area that I can actually help coach someone through. And I've been through a lot in my life, a lot of really niche stuff. And I've done a lot of reading and a lot of research, and I've learned a lot, and I've had to figure out a lot of things for myself with the crazy, weird life that I've had. So if that's interesting, let me know, and we'll be bringing more information about that and what that would look like in the coming few days. So, all right, guys, I'll see you in the Discord. That's all for tonight. Take care of yourselves. Good night.